Saturday, June 24, 2023. This is vlog week 541. This is the vlog I never expected I would ever have to share. This thought never even crossed my mind. First and foremost, just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has reached out via text, email, DM, everyone who left messages on posts, flowers. I mean, everybody who reached out. As many of you know, my son, Darren, Cruz, he passed away on Sunday, May 14, 2023. And he was 23 years old. Sixth time filming this, just the beginning part, because this shit is tough to talk about. We have shared about 10 years worth of vlogs. Times when we would go to Santa Monica Pier and go on the coaster, through birthdays, family events, milestones, birthdays, Christmas, when Darren graduated high school, our Six Flags vlogs, when he left for the army, when he came home, when he decided not to renew his contract, through Chickmas, through Vlogmas, through everything. We've shared so much here on YouTube. And hold up, let me not cry. Two reasons why deciding to share something so personal and so private. Number one is maybe sharing this will help me heal from Darren's passing. By opening up and talking about it, I'm okay with being so vulnerable. And number two is that there's another reason, which I think is the most important reason out of all of this, which I'll get to later on. But a warning that the subject matters I'm going to be talking about are very sensitive and they're heavy topics. And I don't want to trigger anybody, so if you decide to click out of the video, thank you for even clicking on this video, and thank you for taking your time to be here. So Friday, May 12, Darren and a really good friend of his were going away for the weekend, kind of like a boys' weekend. They're going out of state, and Darren was really excited. I mean, this friend of his is a very good friend. His friend was leaving out of the country, and their boys' weekend just to hang out, have fun. And so that morning, I believe their flight was at 9 or 10 in the morning. So Darren, he drove to pick up his friend. He drove all of us to the Burbank airport. I was in the back seat. I was listening to their conversation. They were just so excited for this weekend. So we got to the airport, got out of the car, and I told his friend, please tell your mom Happy Mother's Day. And he said, oh, okay, auntie, Happy Mother's Day. So I got back in the car, and on the side, on the driver's side, holder for the phone, and Darren's phone was in there. He forgot his phone. So got out of the car, I said, wait, you're gonna need your phone. Gave him his phone. He said, Happy Mother's Day, Mom, and gave me a hug. And I watched them go into the airport. Darren was the type of person who, he always checks in. When they arrived at their destination, he texted, and he even called to say that, made it safely and they were going out. I talked to him that night, and he even FaceTimed actually that evening, because he always liked to share, the room wherever they're staying. He would FaceTime and show the room and the view. We had that open type of relationship. Like Jonathan, myself, and Darren, we had a very open relationship. So the next day, which is Saturday, I had talked to him a couple times that day. He even FaceTimed me, and that was common. It's always very common with Darren, even when he's on vacation. I was watching Netflix, doing my nails, and I could tell, he was feeling a little bit down. Talked to him, and I told him, just have a good time. You're there for your friend, your weekend, to spend time with them. And he said, okay. I did speak to him later that evening. Did end up calling my phone around 1:30 a.m., which again was very common. Normally when he is about to go to sleep, or when he goes back to the room, which, by the way, him and his friend both had separate rooms. and they were staying in different towers. It was just common for Darren to call or to FaceTime, even if it was late at night. He always checked in, and that was something I really appreciated about him, because it didn't matter who he was with, he would always like call and FaceTime. When we had talked to him around 1:30 a.m., he sounded still down, but nothing like alarming. And that was the last time we spoke to him. So Sunday, May 14, which is Mother's Day, I had actually FaceTimed him that morning. I think it was around 9, because I wanted him to see Mom's reaction, because he had given her a Mother's Day card, and wanted him to see her reaction when she opened it or when she read it, because there was like an inside joke in the card, and Darren and I just always thought it's funny whenever we joked around with her. He didn't answer, so I ended up just filming it, and because she was heading out to church, sent it to him. And I just figured it's early. Of course, he's not going to be waking up that early, right? Did text him maybe around 11, and at 12 noon, I was starting to get hungry. So I asked Jonathan if he could make something for lunch. While he was making lunch, I decided I haven't talked to Darren yet, so let me just post something on Instagram, like a throwback picture. My mom and I weren't gonna do anything for Mother's Day. We were planning to actually go out somewhere that week, like to a tea room, fancy like tea time party. So I decided to post some throwback pictures for Mother's Day. I think that was around like 12:30. Jonathan was done cooking around like 12:40, so we sat down to eat. I remember not really feeling hungry. Like, I actually felt like nauseous. It's just like that feeling you have, like, I don't know, like something's wrong, right? Tried to eat as much as I could, and I told Jonathan, you know what, I think I'm gonna go upstairs and just take a shower. While I was in the shower, I had the strangest feeling. I wanted to vomit. Immediately I knew something wasn't right, like there was something wrong. So when I got out of the shower, got dressed, and Jonathan was in the room, and I started crying because I could feel, something's not right. I don't remember which time frame it was. His friend had actually reached out through socials asking if we had heard from Darren. I said no, gave him my number, and that's the thing, I didn't even have his friend's number, and I'm so thankful, he reached out through socials. He tried to find out as much information as he can, calling the front desk, because again, they were in separate rooms, and the thing is, with their rooms, their card key will only let you go up to that floor. Even he wasn't able to go up to Darren's room to check if he was okay. So we were texting Darren, calling him, no answer. His friend had actually called and said that he was able to get a hold of the front desk, and they said that he had checked out. His checkout date was on Sunday, so the remainder of the time, which was that Sunday, because they were coming home on Monday, he would be staying in his friend's room. Around 3:30, got a call on my phone, and Jonathan and I were here in the room, and it was the same area code where they were in, and I answered it on speaker, and it was a gentleman. I asked, is this Cruz? I said yes, and he said that he had Darren, and that Darren was deceased. It was the coroner's office. When I tell you that the feeling of just being numb, like, what the I just remember being frozen. Like, holy shit, is this real? Numbness. I didn't know how to feel. Jonathan's there, and he was in such disbelief. He asked if he has Darren's phone, and Jonathan called Darren's phone, and it rang. We asked what happened, and the gentleman told us that his passing, Darren's passing, was of his own will. For privacy purposes, disclosing as much as I can, but not everything, and I hope you understand. Hearing that was heart-wrenching. There's like no words when you hear that his passing was of his own will. Immediately, something clicked in my mind. I need to write everything down. We've never dealt with anything of this magnitude. We didn't know what to do. Told his friend, and his friend had his parents there, thankfully, because his parents did also meet up with them since it was Mother's Day. His friend was really trying to get a hold of him, but nobody could get a hold of Darren. Because Darren is 23, legally, the hotel couldn't call us. I mean, we had no idea, and so it was the coroner's office who called us. Jonathan and I had to figure out how to tell my parents in the best way possible. I mean, you guys, like, my parents are old. We didn't want something happening to them too. So we really thought about how to tell them and how to let other family members know, like immediate family members. That shit was hard to do. I commend Jonathan because he's the one who told my parents and who told his side of the family. The reason why I'm sharing something so personal and so private is because I personally always check in on a loved one to make sure that they're doing okay, that mentally they're doing all right. And yet Darren, who lives here at home for the past 2 years, he's been living here the past 2 years, we didn't see it. We didn't see any signs of, depression or nothing, and I'm sure a lot of like Darren and I were so close, right? Like, we didn't see any of this. And even speaking to him and talking to him on the phone that weekend, we didn't know. We didn't know how much pain he was in and how deep those feelings were. Some people aren't as vocal with their feelings as others. And Darren was, he falls under that category. He just wasn't vocal about how he was feeling. And the thing is, he's always been so adamant about mental health and how mental health is so important, and how sometimes people don't get the help that they need. Sometimes veterans don't get the help that they need in time. If sharing Darren's story, what happened with Darren, helps save one person, then be so thankful for. Never stop checking in on your loved one, because you don't know what somebody's going through, how they're feeling. Maybe on the outside they look like they're happy. They look like they're doing okay. But some people are able to hide and conceal their feelings a lot better than others. And some people just don't want to talk about it. But always keep checking in on your loved ones, because, we didn't realize, how much he was hurting. The next day, my mom and I, we went to the funeral home to start making arrangements for him, since, he was out of state. Bless my mom, because those first few days, it was all a blur. When I tell you, it was just major brain fog. It was like, when we were talking to the coordinator, she would repeat things like 4-5 times, and I was just not comprehending everything. My mom was really like my rock. She was like my eyes and ears. She wrote everything down, and if it weren't for her, I don't know how gotten through all of that, making the arrangements. So thank you, Mom, for being there. There were times that Jonathan really just wanted Darren home already, but I think everything worked out, even though it was a process getting him back here. I think it worked out for the best, because at least things happened one by one instead of everything just kind of coming at us at one time. Time for a family to make arrangements to come over here. When we finally had a date, and as the date was getting closer, There was one specific day, remember, I was preparing his clothing that he would wear because we decided that it would be an open casket. Darren always was so proud of his dress blues. A really formal suit that they wear. Always show it to me. You know, he was so proud of it, so proud of all of his medals and his accomplishments, all his awards. He actually wanted to have it dry cleaned and framed on his wall. So I already knew that, you know, that was the outfit that he wanted to be seen in. I think this is a few days before his viewing Celebration of Life. And I was going to the gym that day because I just needed to clear my mind. You know, I needed that time just for myself. You know, I can just bring his clothing after I go to the gym. And so when I was done, you know, I headed over there to the funeral home, got out of the car. When I entered the funeral home, I started to feel really shaky, like, you know, I can't believe I'm doing this. I went there just by myself, not even really thinking about it, actually bringing his clothing that he's going to be seen in. When I felt that, I was already thinking that maybe I'm not going to see him during his viewing, you know, his Celebration of Life. Maybe it's not how he would want me to remember him, because I didn't want that image of him to be stuck in my mind. After really thinking about it, I just decided, okay, Darren, if you think that it's okay for me to see you, you'll let me know by the end of the viewing. So his viewing and Celebration of Life was on Wednesday, May 31st. Family were already there before us because my mom and I had to take care of some paperwork. And I remember walking in there and just hearing crying. And when I walked in there, I told him, okay, Darren, help me hold my together. I don't want to be the sobbing mother. I think I had even told some of his friends that I want to be able to greet and thank everybody who was able to be here. I knew I needed to set up this table. I wanted other people to be able to see the other side of Darren. A few of Darren's favorite things. So it was his love for K-pop, some of his favorite K-pop groups, figure of Levi from Attack on Titan, display of Six Flags Magic Mountain with all the rides since we loved coasters so much, pair of his shoes because he was definitely a sneakerhead, his Funko Pops, some Call of Duty items because he was definitely a gamer, his boxing gloves because boxing was what he was really into. This past year, he really got into boxing and he loved it. I think a lot of you know that, or I'm not sure if you know, but Darren and I were gym buddies, carpool to the gym. On the other table were some of his accomplishments. And these photos that were framed were actually on his wall, like he put them up. So this is something that meant a lot to him. A plaque when he was deployed to Iraq for about a year. He couldn't come home because of the pandemic. His friends, like his good friends, had given this to him before he came home in 2021. He was so proud of it, and I remember helping him. He was asking my opinion on placement. These things really meant a lot to him. During his viewing Celebration of Life, primarily just stood in the back where people walked into the chapel. So towards the end, the last 20 minutes, the coordinator had asked if we would want just Jonathan and I there. And I think it was Jonathan, Darren's cousin, and my brother-in-law who were left in the chapel. I knew it was time to see him. Turned and asked Jonathan, do you want to go? And I just, you know, I didn't want to force him, so I said, okay, you know, I'm going to go. So I took a deep breath and remember hearing K-pop music because the playlist, the music that was playing that day was K-pop. Darren would have been so upset if it was, you know, the normal sad music you hear during viewings. I mean, this was a celebration of his life, and the music of choice was definitely K-pop because that's what he loved. I remember thinking also, can't believe I'm actually doing this. So I walked down that aisle towards him, and when I saw him, It looked like my Ren. I mean, he looked really good. He looked peaceful. He looked like he was just sleeping. Even his hair was perfectly fixed. It was just like how Darren would have wanted it. They really took good care of him. Touched his hand, touched his face. I talked to him. Put in Darren's hand a letter that I had written to him earlier that day. And I wrote that letter for Darren because when Darren was around 18 years old, he had come back from a youth camp. He gave me this note, like a letter, and I've always kept that in my wallet ever since. So, I thought it was only right that I write him a letter. It's strange because I didn't even shed a tear. I knew it was him, but that spirit, that, like, his soul, it just wasn't there. And I thought I'd be like a wreck, that's why I waited until the very last minute, till the very end to see him. But, I didn't cry at all. And so it was time for us to leave. Kissed him on the forehead, I think 2 or 3 times, and I wanted just to give him one last kiss on the forehead. I told him I loved him, and I'll see you later. On Friday, June 2nd, that was the day of the service and the burial. We thought that there would be more people at the viewing than the day of the burial, but it was actually the same amount of people. It was comforting to know that so many people from all different ages, the impact he made on people's lives. Heartwarming to see that he touched a lot of lives, and people remember what a great guy he was. Even though some of them haven't seen him for years, they were there. And of course, there are people who were unable to make it to his viewing celebration of life and the burial. People reached out who didn't even know me personally, and to send their condolences and flowers and messages. It's comforting to know that he was really loved and so many people cared about him. So the day of his service, I had asked my uncle to be the presider. And for the eulogy, it was Darren's cousins, Abby, Angel, and Ian, and also myself. We had asked Ian if he could also read Darren's high school graduation speech, which Darren was very proud of. For his burial, he did have the taps, which was a beautiful ceremony. I know he was looking down on all of us. It was exactly how he would have wanted it. It was comforting to have family around the next couple of weeks. We're forever grateful for having family around, because I think at that point, that's what we really needed. We even attended a concert, which, that will be for the next vlog. And it's something really special because it was a K-pop concert that Darren was really looking forward to. Darren actually bought the tickets for us back in March. So it was supposed to be Darren, myself, and his girlfriend Julia, but we did fulfill that for him. My sister-in-law and Ina and Ivan were able to extend their stay, and grateful that they were able to, because, just having family around these past few weeks was really helped us start to heal. It helped us keep busy and just not sit around. But yesterday, my sister-in-law and Ina and Ivan, they did have to go back home. And now it's just Jonathan, Mom, and Dad who are here. And this is like the tough part, how to move forward. To be honest, I contemplated never coming back on social media, going back to 9 to 5. But I remembered a couple weeks ago, before Darren's passing, him and I were actually talking about working for yourself. So I know Darren would be very disappointed if I just stopped doing this, because he was always so supportive of YouTube, and you guys know that. I mean, he was in the vlogs, and I didn't know that he was proud of what I was doing. So I'm gonna continue, of course, for him and for myself. But it's more of, how do I pick up? I'm kind of lost with how to do that, because at the same time I don't want to seem insensitive, maybe with a beauty video or something, but I know I need to keep myself busy and move forward. Now, in terms of grieving, because we've been preoccupied family these past a little over 40 days, if I'm being honest, I cried the first few days. I know everyone grieves differently. I can sit in his room and be in there and I'll be fine. I'll be in the room and maybe it'll be a picture of him or, something, and I'll start to cry, but it's not like a full-on sobbing. No, he's not here. He's no longer here physically, but my mind hasn't like fully processed. So every day, as much as possible, I'm gonna go to his grave. Jonathan and I don't call it like his final resting place. We call it like our meetup spot where we meet him, because his home will always be here. When I meet up with Darren, forced to face it head on that, he's no longer here. I know it's like my subconscious trying to block it out with prayers and with time, help me heal. But I also know that things will never be the same. There'll always be that piece that will always be missing in my heart. And I miss him. I really miss him. I miss his smile, his laugh. I miss joking around with him. I miss everything about him. It's not a goodbye. It's a see you later type of thing. But until then, we have to move forward. We have to make him proud and do it for Darren. Before I end the vlog, I wanted to read what I wrote for his eulogy. Darren was a very easygoing type of guy. I've always admired his comedic character and his unforgettable charisma. He was the type of person who could spark a conversation with anyone, and their conversation just flowed. No awkward moments. That's just how he was. Very approachable, friendly, and always willing to help others. These past 23 years with Darren were extraordinary. Having him home the past 2 years after he served in the Army is a time period I will always cherish. Darren really valued family time. He would make it a point that during dinner, which was usually a bit late because we would come back from the gym around 9 p.m., sometimes later, and he would ask Mom if she wanted to join us, even if she had already eaten. Darren always wanted the 5 of us, Mom, Dad, Jonathan, and myself, and him, to all be downstairs in the family room so we could talk and spend time together as we ate dinner. He was always so thoughtful, whether it was asking Dad if he wanted a taro boba or if he saw something at the store and thought one of us could use it. He was selfless and always had us in the back of his mind. Darren opened my eyes to the world of K-pop. Honestly, I've never been a fan, but it wasn't until he played a few songs in the car from an artist named IU, and that's when the love for K-pop began. He also got Jonathan and I into watching anime. He asked us if we wanted to watch Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan, even though he had already seen all the episodes. Guess you could call it like a family movie night. We watched both animes with him, and I could tell he was elated that Jonathan enjoyed them. The storyline for both animes were very good, but we knew Jonathan enjoyed it due to the fact that there were no subtitles and it was in English. Darren really liked the character Levi from Attack on Titan so much that he had Levi tattooed on his right forearm, which he was so proud of. All of his tattoos suited him very well. Now, K-drama was a bit too much for Jonathan. It was more of a Darren and my thing. I had never watched a K-drama before, and after watching it, I can see why people get so hooked to them. To name a few, Darren and I watched Hotel de Luna, Crash Landing on You, and recently, It's Okay Not to Be Okay. It was our quality time together, watching an episode or two in his room, munching on some snacks. We wouldn't binge watch because Darren and Dad had their nightly routine at 11:30 p.m. when they would watch Perry Mason together. Some of my favorite memories of Darren would be our Taco Bell / McDonald's runs while blasting K-pop music in the car, driving around different neighborhoods in the area looking at Christmas decorations, our drives to and from the gym, all while K-pop music is playing at max volume in the car. About 2 months ago, Darren and I had a conversation in the car, and he said, "Yeah, you're my mom, but you're more like my sister," which I found very flattering, especially coming from him. We had a very open relationship, from our inside jokes, which would make Mom mad, or playing rock, paper, scissors in the gas station parking lot on who was going to pay for gas this time around. He was also very adamant about me being more aware of my surroundings, and even showed me how he holds his water container so it could be used as a weapon, just in case. He was always very protective, and will do better for him. I only realized after his passing that Darren was not only my son, but he was also my best friend. We recently discovered a group called XG, and we constantly played their song named Shooting Star during our drives. If you haven't heard it, you have to listen to it at least once because the lyrics and the beat really hit. We really love that song, and that memory of him driving while listening to Shooting Star is how I want to remember him. Darren will always be my shooting star.